Part 19. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 181. As Gu Mingde listened to Brother Shen's cry, he couldn't help but think that if a family really waited for an unreliable person like Brother Shen to come to save them, it would probably be doomed. Gu Mingde asked a lot, "Are you sure you want to go back to the capital?" When Brother Shen heard this, he suddenly looked surprised. "Uncle Gu, why are you asking this? I've already boarded the boat, do I have to get off the boat at the next pier? After all, I finally got rid of the servants." "Did your parents urge you to leave Beijing?" Gu Mingde asked. When Brother Shen heard this, he said, "I want to go to Linzhou to play. My father doesn't care, but my mother doesn't want me to leave the capital. It was my repeated requests that made my mother reluctantly allow me to come out to play." When Gu Mingde heard what Brother Shen said, he was sure that this guy was not sent out of Beijing by his family just to avoid trouble. "But I do miss my parents a little. No matter how fun it is outside, it is not home after all," Brother Shen said with emotion. Gu Mingde asked Niuniu to give the pills to Zhang Yuniang, who was lying in the back room. After sending her daughter away, Gu Mingde talked a lot with Brother Shen. Brother Shen seemed a little wary of outsiders, but this wariness could not withstand the old fox's few words. As soon as Niuniu came in and out, Gu Mingde had already used clichés to outline the image of a young man with nothing to do. He had no goals and no desire to make progress. The most important thing all day long was to have fun. This mindless look really didn't look like it. What a bad guy. Brother Shen almost revealed his identity several times. If he met someone who was interested, he would probably be able to detect his true identity from his flaws. However, Gu Mingde only wanted to make sure that he was harmless and did not dig into his identity. Gu Mingde guessed that Brother Shen's seasickness medicine should have been made by an imperial physician, and the status of someone who could ask an imperial physician to prescribe medicine would not be too low. "Uncle Gu, I have a heartfelt request," Brother Shen said calmly. Gu Mingde raised his eyebrows slightly and asked, "Do you want to borrow money?" Gu Mingde was already ready to lend him money. Brother Shen had previously blocked the old Taoist priest for them on the dock. This was a good intention. Although it is not yet known whether the old Taoist priest is a friend or foe, Gu Mingde still accepted Brother Shen's affection. Brother Shen had tears in his eyes. "It's not a loan, but Uncle Gu, are you really willing to lend me money? We've never met each other. I didn't expect you to trust me so much." Gu Mingde nodded. Brother Shen couldn't help but feel a little ashamed. After all, there was water in what he just said, and he deliberately concealed his origin. He felt that he was not being honest. "I don't want to borrow money. Can I come to Beijing with you? I can work. Help you take care of your children and move things. As long as you can let me arrive in Beijing safely, I will thank you very much. 100 taels of silver, no, 100 taels of gold." Brother Shen put forward this request, and he was willing to go all out. If he really encountered someone who was not careful, he might actually use him as a boss. But Brother Shen had to do this. After all, this boat was a mixed bag, and he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to keep the money he borrowed. After staying in the lower cabin for a day and a night, he finally understood that when he was alone, it was sometimes more important to take care of people than money. He obviously bought the bed, but because of the large number of people there, he just grabbed it. While he was away from home, he felt that he had to take advantage of the situation. If he stayed with this family, he would at least be guaranteed to have enough to eat. Before Gu Mingde could reply, Niu suddenly rushed out of the room excitedly and said excitedly to Gu Mingde, "Dad, Mom took the medicine. I waited for a while, and Mom said she was much better. It's really a miracle medicine." When Brother Shen heard this, he immediately said proudly, "Of course this medicine is useful. This is a secret recipe passed down from the old doctor's family. Ordinary people would not help prepare it? When Niu heard this, she walked up to Brother Shen and gave a solemn salute. Brother Shen, thank you so much. Niu will pay you the price of the medicine, Niu said and started to take out the money in her pocket. But Brother Shen waved his hand and said, it's just a few pills, how can I still collect your money? Take it back quickly. Niu sighed after hearing this and said, brother, if you don't accept the money, I don't even know how to thank you. Gu Mingda watched the two people arguing and suddenly got an idea and said, Brother Shen, let's help you pay for a superior room. There happens to be an empty room next door. The superior room comes with 3 meals a day. Take it as a gift. Thank you for relieving my wife's seasickness. This arrangement can solve Brother Shen's dilemma, but Gu Mingda's losses are relatively large. After all, he actually took out the money. Brother Shen looked surprised. A superior room with food and accommodation included? Are you serious? After experiencing the pain of hunger, it is very important for Brother Shen to be able to eat enough. Gu Mingda chuckled and nodded. Brother Shen said with emotion, if I hadn't listened to the old Taoist priest and said that I wanted to go to Beijing like ordinary people, I wouldn't have bought a datong bunk to sleep in. If I had just rented a high-class room, even if I lost my wallet, I wouldn't be hungry. Abdomen. Uncle Gu, help me pay the money first, and I will pay you back when we get to the capital. Gu Mingda said, why should you be so polite about this little thing? If you really have to pay for it, wouldn't I also have to pay for your medicine? After hearing this, Brother Shen didn't dwell on the matter anymore, but secretly decided that when he got to the capital, he would repay this family well. Gu Mingda added, the ship docks in Tongzhou. Then you can just follow our carriage to Beijing and we will take you home. Gu Mingda said this to arrange the last mile of Brother Shen's return to the capital. Brother Shen was very grateful. Soon, Gu Mingda found the steward on the ship and rented the next room. Brother Shen finally didn't have to smell other people's foot odor and sweat anymore. The ordinary and simple room became extremely comfortable in his eyes. There is a door lock. I close the door from the inside, so others can't get in. I can also lock the door when I go out, so that others won't steal my things. Brother Shen was amazed at everything he saw. He was always surrounded by servants when he traveled, and rarely had to worry about locking the door and anti-theft. He had almost no life experience. He suffered this time. I'm afraid he can't sleep well at night without locking the door. Gu Mingda looked at him and suddenly felt something was wrong. Where is your baggage? Haven't you packed your luggage? You don't even have clothes to wash and change. When Brother Shen heard him ask about this, a mask of pain instantly appeared on his face. I ran onto the ship without my servants. They didn't pack my luggage, and I didn't know what to bring. Gu Mingda didn't know what to say for a moment. At least the other party's otherworldly appearance proved that he was really a young man from a wealthy family. Niu on the side tilted her head, as if imparting life wisdom, and said, brother, don't you know how to pack your luggage? Niu can teach you. Pack different luggage according to the length of time you are out. If the time is long, only bring 1 or 2 sets of clothes. Listening to the girl's soft voice, Brother Shen was so ashamed that he wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. Gu Mingda originally wanted to stop Niu from continuing to talk, so as not to make Brother Shen feel uncomfortable. Unexpectedly, after the initial discomfort, Brother Shen behaved very humbly. He squatted down and looked Niu in the eye and said, I'll remember this. If you run away without telling the servants next time, I'll know how to pack my luggage. First update. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 182. Niu stood on tiptoe, patted his shoulder and said, you are inexperienced. You will not suffer such a loss next time. You can ask me if you don't know how to do it in the future. Although I am only 6 years old, I already understand a lot of things. Brother Shen nodded vigorously, as if he had received some great life advice. You are right. I will ask you for advice in the future. Gu Mingda and the other two dared to speak and believe. He couldn't help but have a thought in his heart. This young man didn't seem to be smarter than a 6-year-old child. Brother Shen even said sincerely, if I were as smart as you, Daddy wouldn't dislike me. I'm too stupid and don't know how to please him. Nayuniu asked in surprise, why do you want to please Daddy? Your daddy doesn't like you. Perhaps because of Nayuniu, Brother Shen easily opened his heart and said, Dad actually hides it very well, but I know that he doesn't like me. Nayuniu looked at Brother Shen's expression, which was visibly depressed, and patted his shoulder again, saying, do you care about his liking? Brother Shen nodded vigorously. Niu asked again, what kind of people does he like? Brother Shen said, my father likes people who are good at studying, and likes those children who are very motivated. Niu asked, are you? Brother Shen shook his head, I also want to be motivated, but I am really not smart. Every time I read a few pages, I start to feel sleepy. I am afraid that I can't be a child that my father is satisfied with. Niu pondered for a moment and said, although you are not very smart and don't want to be motivated, I still like you very much. I think you are a very good person. Brother Shen sighed and said, Niu, you are so nice, thank you for comforting me. Niu shook her head, I am not comforting you, I am telling the truth. Brother Shen was even happier when he heard Niu say this. But Niu said the next sentence, Brother Shen, I think your father has some problems. Brother Shen's first reaction to hearing this was, what's wrong? My father has no problems, he is in good health. Niu pointed to her heart, he has a problem in his heart. Brother Shen was a little angry and said, Niu, although I treat you as a friend, you can't say bad things about my father. Niu continued, I'm not saying bad things, I'm telling the truth. How can a father not like his children? My father really likes me and my brothers. Father, is that right? Gu Mingda, who was standing by, didn't expect that he would suddenly become a referee. He smiled and said, yes, of course Daddy likes you, because you are all Daddy's children. Nayuniu looked at Brother Shen when she heard this and said, look, my daddy is like this. Brother Shen looked disappointed and said, maybe it's because I'm too unsuccessful, that's why I don't please Daddy. Nayuniu put her hands on her hips and said, Daddy likes his own children. What does it have to do with whether the children are competitive or not? Even if I'm not competitive, my daddy will still like me. Brother Shen looked at Gu Mingda when he heard this. Gu Mingda nodded and said, I like Nayuniu because Nayuniu is my daughter. Even if she is not as smart as she is now, even if she is just an ordinary child, she is very important in my heart. Brother Shen was immediately dejected, like a puppy abandoned by the whole world. Gu Mingda couldn't help but want to comfort him. Niu suddenly patted his shoulder again, brother, why do you look like you have made a big mistake? Brother Shen, Niu continued, this is not your fault, it's your father who has a mental problem. Brother Shen's eyes were more confused. He doesn't like me, how can it be his problem? Brother Shen didn't understand. Niu said, maybe he doesn't know how to like his own children, does he like other children? Gu Mingda wanted to say that the Shen family was obviously a deep mansion, and it was difficult to speculate what was going on there with common sense. But when he heard his daughter say this, he suddenly felt that Niu might not be wrong. After thinking for a while, Brother Shen said, my father only has 2 children, me and my sister. Dad said he likes my sister very much, but I don't think he likes my sister very much. Why do you say that? Niu asked. Brother Shen said, my sister once wanted to ask Dad for advice, but Dad was very impatient. I always feel that this should not be love. Niu nodded and said, then your father really doesn't like your sister? My father will never be impatient with me. Brother Shen looked at Gu Mingda with envy again. He wished he could become Gu Mingda's son. Is your sister successful? Niu asked again. Brother Shen mentioned his sister and was immediately proud. My sister is very smart, she is as smart as you. She is only 13 years old, but she has mastered everything from music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Niu heard this and said, look, your sister is successful but your father doesn't like her much. It shows that your father has a problem, not because you are not likable or because you did something wrong. Brother Shen actually felt that Niu's logic was very smooth, but he felt that something seemed wrong. Isn't it a bit rebellious to think so? But I still hope my father can like me, Brother Shen said. Niu couldn't remember how many times she had patted Brother Shen's shoulder and said, only if you cure your father's mental illness will he like you. Brother Shen humbly asked, how can I cure my father's mental illness? Niu, do you know? Niu shook her head and said, I don't know. Brother Shen sighed. Niu patted his shoulder again and said, when we get to the capital, I will help you find a way. There must be a way when the car reaches the mountain. There must be a way. Brother Shen's eyes lit up again. Niu, you are so good. What would I do without you? Gu Mingda looked at the big and small one from the side, and had an illusion in a trance. Although Brother Shen was almost a generation older than Niu, he looked like Niu's younger brother. In the evening, Li heard about Brother Shen's story and asked someone to send a set of Sun Jiaxing's old clothes. Gu Mingda asked the boatman to send hot water. Brother Shen took a hot bath, changed into clean clothes, and ran to formally meet the two families. After washing his face, Gu Mingda was finally sure that this was the handsome young man with beautiful features on the dock. Gu Mingda thought of Shen Ziyou's innocent personality, and his appearance. If it weren't for the dirt on his face, he didn't know what he would have encountered. Gu Mingda also deeply understood what Shen Ziyou said. He really regarded Niu as a life mentor and asked Niu what to do when there was something. Niu, do you throw dirty clothes directly into the river? Usually, the servants deal with it. I don't know what to do, Shen Ziyou asked Niu. Second update. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 183. Niu opened her eyes wide. Why did you throw it into the river? Where to throw it? Brother Shen asked humbly. Niu said, why throw away good clothes? Our family has washed them and put them away. Brother Shen, why are you putting them away? I never wear my clothes a second time. When Gu Mingda on the side heard this, he thought of the rumors that the masters of wealthy families were like this and only wore new clothes once. Niu wrinkled her nose when she heard this kind of behavior from wealthy people, and asked in confusion, why do you only wear it once and it wears out after just one time? Brother Shen originally didn't think there was anything wrong with doing this, but after hearing what Niu said, he immediately felt guilty, as if he had done something wrong. I don't know, it's just that this is how my family has always done it. Niu said, in our village, many people are reluctant to throw away their patched clothes. Brother Shen felt more and more guilty and said, then I will also wear patched clothes next time. Niu looked at him in surprise and asked, you have good clothes, why do you wear patched clothes? Brother Shen didn't know what to say, so he hesitated and said, this should make you happier. Niu felt even more strange, I'm not unhappy. Brother Shen suddenly looked confused and asked, I thought you wanted me to be frugal. Niu added, whether you are frugal or not is your own business. Gu Mingda listened for a while and roughly understood where the communication between the two went wrong. Brother Shen, Niuniu doesn't mean to accuse you, so don't worry too much, Gu Mingda explained. Brother Shen stood there, tilting his head and thinking for a long time, and said, but I don't know what to do now. I didn't think there was anything wrong at first, but after hearing what Niuniu said, I suddenly felt that throwing it away after wearing it once seemed very strange. Inappropriate. He only experienced the life of ordinary people for one day, and he felt all the difficulties that ordinary people had to face. Clothes were worn once and then thrown away, and the diet had to be exquisite. The extravagant style in the past was just like a dream. Niu said, Brother Shen, you can wear the same clothes several times. You can also give old clothes that you don't want to wear to others. This way you can save fabric and do good things. Brother Shen immediately said, okay, I listen to you, I like to do good deeds the most. Niu then said, the dirty clothes on your hands, let's wash them clean. I will teach you how to wash clothes. Let me tell you, I can wash clothes. I used to wash the clothes of the whole family. Brother Shen didn't hear the weirdness in Niu's words. Instead, he nodded vigorously and praised, Niu, you are so awesome. Gu Mingda glanced at his daughter distressedly and secretly thought that the Zhang family's current ruin might be retribution for torturing Niu in the first place. After Zhang Yuniang got the medicine from Brother Shen, her seasickness improved almost entirely, and she was able to get out of bed and walk the same day. Seeing that her mother was well, Niu became even better to Brother Shen and wished she could teach him all her life wisdom. Most other people would only find these commonplace things funny, but Brother Shen found them like treasures. Brother Shen was not smart enough and had poor learning ability. He happened to meet Niu. Niu was a child herself, so naturally she would only teach Brother Shen the way a child would. Niu had a good temper and would teach her twice until she couldn't learn it once. Learn how to do it without any impatience in the whole process. Brother Shen actually learned a lot of things like this. He has grown from a young man who never touched the spring water, to now he can light a stove to boil water, and he also knows how to tidy up the bedding in the house so that it won't be as messy as a pig's nest. Brother Shen didn't feel tired from the work, but found it very interesting. Niu, you are so awesome, you really know a lot of things. Brother Shen's praise is also the best reward for Niu. I'll learn more and teach you slowly in the future, Niu said with her little fists. Brother Shen looked at the little teacher with admiration. The boat was bumpy and reading hurt his eyes. Gu Mingda simply did not continue studying. Instead, he and Sun Jiaxing stayed with several children all day long and taught them how to compose poetry. Gu Yan had learned this a long time ago, so he stood aside and said nothing. Niu also understood. Not only did she learn by herself, but she also took her new friends to learn. At this time, she whispered to Brother Shen, the virtual and the real should be relative, and the balance should be balanced. Dad said that he should write river scenes. Do you understand? Already. Brother Shen had been shaking his head before, but this time he nodded. Gu Mingda had broken it into pieces and told him how to compose a poem, and Niu told him again. He didn't do well in studying at home, and he lost so many teachers because of his anger. Now on the boat, following Gu Mingda and Sun Jiaxing, he was filled with knowledge. He understood some of the knowledge once Gu and Sun told him about it, but he didn't understand some of it, but if Niu told him one or two more times, he would understand. Perhaps because these words were so clear, Brother Shen actually felt that he was not so worthless. The turbid waves are thousands of white, and the long rivers are thousands of miles yellow, Brother Shen said. Gu Mingda looked at Brother Shen in surprise. What's wrong? Uncle Gu, am I not good at writing? Brother Shen was a little scared. Gu Mingda sometimes couldn't understand why Brother Shen, a kid from a rich family, seemed to care so much about what others thought. For a beginner, It's already very good. You seem to have a deep sense of color, and you don't have any talent for painting, Gu Mingde praised. This casual compliment made Brother Shen burst into tears of joy. Brother Shen, why are you crying? Isn't it a happy thing to be praised? Niu Niu didn't understand. After all, she would be happy for a long time every time her father praised her. No one has ever praised me for my talent. My family thinks I am unlearned, Brother Shen said. Niu Niu said, everyone has talent, but they just didn't find it before. Maybe you can become a particularly great painter. Have you ever learned to paint? Brother Shen shook his head and said, I even learned the 3-character classic for a long time, and my family never expected me to do so. Then let's learn to paint later, and then let those who say you have no talent take a good look, Niu Niu encouraged. Brother Shen instantly had a direction, and made up his mind to let his mother hire a teacher for him when he returned to Beijing. Gu Mingde listened to Niu Niu and the others write poems. Gu Yan wrote in a standard way, Niu Niu wrote with childishness, but Gu Zhao scratched his head for a long time and couldn't even write a doggerel. Forget about today. If you write like this tomorrow, I will punish you, Gu Mingde said. Gu Zhao made a bitter face and asked, are you going to write about the river scene tomorrow? What to write tomorrow? Of course, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Don't try to be clever, Gu Mingde said. Brother Shen on the side suddenly said, it will probably rain tomorrow. Are you going to write about the scene in the rain? First update. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 184. When everyone heard this, they raised their heads and saw that the sky above was cloudless, and it didn't look like it would rain tomorrow. Dad, will it really rain tomorrow? Niu Niu asked. Gu Mingde didn't know how to predict the weather. He couldn't explain clearly when he heard this, so he asked Brother Shen, Brother, how did you know it will rain tomorrow? Brother Shen looked up at the sky and said, is it hard to see? Look at that cloud in the east. It's a rain cloud. It's probably going to be thunderstorms tomorrow. Uncle Gu, I may be wrong about other things, but I never observe the weather. Nothing wrong. Niu Niu looked up for a long time, but she couldn't tell the difference between that cloud and the clouds next to it. Brother Shen, I can't tell the difference clearly, Niu Niu said. Brother Shen looked at the others, who all shook their heads. Niu Niu suddenly said, Brother Shen, is this your talent? No one else can tell the difference, only you can. When Brother Shen heard this, his eyes instantly burst with brilliance. Really? This is also my talent? Can I still have 2 talents? Niu Niu said, why can't we have 2 talents? Great people have many talents. Brother Shen was very excited, feeling like he was finally living like a human being. Niu Niu was also very happy for him and said, look, you are actually very powerful. You don't have to think about those people who don't like you all day long. This was originally meant to comfort him, but when Brother Shen heard it, he felt as if he had been poured cold water on him and said, being able to look at the weather doesn't seem to be a particularly great skill. Niu Niu said, why isn't it amazing? If you know how to look at the weather, you can avoid bad weather when you go out. Whether it's farming or fighting, there are many places where the weather can be used. Really? Is it really that useful? Brother Shen asked. Niu Niu nodded vigorously and asked again, Brother Shen, do you know how to read the weather? Then you are really good. Brother Shen shook his head shyly and said, when I went to visit a relative's house in Qin, I found a book that taught people how to see clouds and watch the wind. I read it once and remembered it. Brother Shen, you remembered it just after reading it once. You can accurately identify all kinds of clouds. You are a genius. Niu Niu's rainbow fart seemed endless. Although Brother Shen is homesick, at this moment, he hopes that time can be extended indefinitely and that he can always be immersed in the praise of others. It did rain the next day. After breakfast, the originally quiet and peaceful sky suddenly changed. Heavy raindrops rained down on the ship as if they were free of charge. Thunder and lightning thundered in the sky, carrying the momentum that seemed to destroy everything. Except for the boatmen, no one else dared to show their heads on the board. The rain was too heavy, the boat was moving too hard, and I didn't dare to light a lamp in the house. It was pitch black everywhere. After finishing breakfast, Niu Niu was held in her arms by her mother. Brother Shen is right. It's really going to be a thunderstorm today. I want to learn from him how to read the weather, Niu Niu said. Gu Mingdan nodded. There is no end to learning. Learn a little bit of everything, so you never know when it will come in handy and be of great help. Gu Zhao hurriedly said, I want to learn too. It will be easier for me to catch bugs in the wild in the future. Gu Mingda was not angry when he heard this, but asked, you like insects so much, are you willing to catch them and make them into medicinal materials in the future? After hearing this, Gu Zhao pretended to be an adult and sighed, what if you don't want to give up? You always have to eat, so at worst, you will keep your favorite bugs. Gu Mingda couldn't help but worry. If there were a lot of bugs in the house, would he really be able to marry a wife by then? The big ship swayed from side to side in the wind and waves and moved forward hard. The heavy rain continued day after day, and the people on the boat went from being calm at first to becoming restless and frightened again. The boatman delivered meals later and later, and the expression on his face became increasingly ugly. Ms. Sir, eat more. Zhang Yuniang said, and gave Gu Mingda the food in her bowl. Gu Mingda didn't answer, but said, it's okay, I'm just like you. I stay in the cabin all day long and don't go out for anything. Zhang Yuniang sighed and said, the food is getting less and less each time. I can't even eat enough, let alone you, a grown man. The boat slowed down during the heavy rain, and the boatman seemed to be afraid of running out of food, so he had no choice but to come up with this way to reduce the ration. Gu Mingda sighed and said, the rain will stop eventually, but it's raining so hard now. I'm afraid the wind and waves will be too big and the boat will. There are some things that cannot be said on the ship, so Gu Mingda did not say the word knock over. While he was talking, a wave came over and the boat shook. If Gu Mingda hadn't had quick eyesight and quick hands to protect the food, he might not have eaten this meal. I'll ask Brother Shen later when the rain will stop, Gu Mingda said. Say Cao and Cao will arrive. Brother Shen knocked on the door and entered the house, looking at the Gu family pitifully. I'm hungry. The boatman didn't bring you food, Gu Mingda was surprised. He couldn't help but wonder if the boatman had bullied Brother Shen into taking the boat alone and deliberately deprived him of his rations. Brother Shen shook his head and cried, the boat is shaking too much, I can't protect it, I really can't protect it. The Gu family all looked at him in surprise. During the past 3 days, Brother Shen had to waste a portion of his meal every day because of the strong wind and waves. He was a young man from a wealthy family and was very particular about food, but now he would pick up and eat the food that fell on the ground. He was so unlucky that the first wave knocked over his bowl, and the second wave knocked him over, and the food was crushed into pieces. Even if he picked it up, he didn't dare to eat it. If the second wave didn't destroy all the food, the third wave would make up for it, and Brother Shen would have a hard time eating every bite of food. If it weren't for the strong wind and waves today, Brother Shen would not have lost face and asked the Gu family for help if he didn't eat for 2 consecutive meals. Gu Mingda took his bowl and shared some of his food with him. Brother Shen was really hungry. He took the bowl and ate it, wolfing it down, without any gentleman's demeanor, for fear that the food would be gone if he was late. Brother Shen is really hungry, Nayunio said softly. Just as Brother Shen put down his bowl and chopsticks, the boat suddenly shook violently again. He actually turned over from his chair and fell to the ground, with a muffled sound on his head. In comparison, even the oldest Gu family members, Mrs. Gu and Mrs. Gu, were safe and sound at this time. When the boat stopped, Nayunio immediately asked with concern, "Brother Shen, are you okay?" Brother Shen had a lump on his head, but he was still just thankful, fortunately, only I fell, not my food." Gu Mingda sighed, only feeling that Brother Shen fell once, and seemed to be even more stupid. The rainstorm lasted for 5 days and finally stopped. The people on the boat thought they had finally survived the disaster, but they didn't expect that after the storm, all the monsters and demons would emerge. Sun Jiaxing looked at the densely packed ships that appeared in front, behind, left and right, and slapped his thigh in anger. "Oh no, we met pirates." The second update. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 185. The appearance of the water thief was unexpected by everyone. According to common sense, even if water thieves rob, they should not rob such a huge ship. This situation is not normal. Could it be that the water thieves have also run out of food? Sun Jiaxing said softly. He and Gu Mingda looked at each other, and the two of them quickly made a decision. "Father, Mother, Yun Niang, you find a hiding place to hide and take care of the children. Let's go and have a look in front," Gu Mingda said to Zhang Yun Niang. Sun Jiaxing also warned Li in the same way. The men from both families have decided to sacrifice themselves, just to protect their wives, children, and family. Together they found the chief steward on the ship. "Manager Su, the water thieves are coming with force. The plan for now is to organize the strong men on the ship to fight against the enemy together," Gu Mingda suggested. When facing Gu Mingda and Sun Jiaxing, the chief steward always had a very considerate and courteous attitude because he knew that the two were Juran and Jinchi. No, our boss has already dealt with the bandits along the road. I just took a look from a distance and saw the flag of Wuazai hanging out on the opposite side. The boss has a close relationship with our business. As long as we show our sign, they won't make it more difficult," the chief steward said confidently. Gu Mingda and Sun Jiaxing were not as optimistic as him. "Manager Su, I vaguely remember that it seems that the flag on the bow of the ship is hanging with the sign of your employer," Gu Mingda reminded. But the chief steward still didn't take it to heart and said, "Nowadays, the wind and waves are strong, and it is common to see the flag clearly. You don't need to worry too much." When Gu Mingda heard this, a big stone hung in his heart, and he did not feel relaxed at all. "Manager Su, no matter whether the water thief is properly dealt with or not, it is not a bad thing for us to prepare first. If the visitor is really evil, there will be no time to make temporary preparations," Gu Mingda persuaded earnestly. But Guanqi Su seemed to have made up his mind, and a look of impatience began to appear on his face. "Gu Juran, we people have been making a living on the water all year round. I have never had any problems with water thieves in all my years of sailing. Things on the water no one knows better than us, just keep your heart in your stomach." The big steward almost pointed his nose at them and said they were meddling in their own business. While several people were talking, the water thieves' boats had formed an encirclement. The chief steward asked someone to let a small boat down. He took the prepared silver and took several boatmen to transfer to the small boats and went to the water thieves' leader. The chief steward saw what seemed to be the third leader of Wuazai standing on the boat headed by him, and he did not realize the seriousness of the problem. "Third master, why are you out on business today, while the first master is his old man?" the first steward asked with a smile. The third master sneered, "It seems like you don't care about me anymore." The chief steward was stunned when he heard this. They had always been polite in their dealings, so why did the third master suddenly fall out with each other? The chief steward hurriedly handed over the silver. "Third master, you are just joking. Be careful and treat the brothers to a drink with it." The third boss didn't answer. The big steward didn't know what went wrong for a moment, so he added a handful of broken silver. Okay, I haven't seen Manager Su for a few days, and today I found out that our Wazi is just a bunch of beggars in the eyes of your trading company, the third master said in a strange tone. When the chief steward heard this, he only felt aggrieved. Third master, our boss just ordered someone to send the offering money a few months ago. The money is not in my hands. How do I know whether the money is real or fake? The third master replied casually. Perhaps it was because the former head of Wazi was too polite to the chief steward. The chief steward had not noticed anything was wrong at this time and only said, Third master, you are not being unreasonable. You have already given me the money you should give. After that, if you don't believe it, send someone back to ask the boss. The third master sighed and said, You are making it difficult for me. Since you are unwilling to pay and are eager to see the first master, I can only help you. Hearing this, a young man next to the third master seemed to be eager to show off, and he took a big knife and slashed directly at the chief steward. Old man, one by one, the third master, don't you take our first master seriously? Before the big boss died, his eyes widened. You killed the big boss too. The big housekeeper took everything into account, except that there was trouble in Wazi, and a bloody seizure of power actually occurred. Gu Mingda and Sun Jiaxing stood on the board of the boat, watching those people who were originally talking about killing people suddenly killing people. Gu Mingda and Sun Jiaxing expected that there might be twists and turns, but they did not expect that the chief executive would use his life to verify this. There were many people on the boat who saw this scene. The small boat led by the big steward was gone, and the boatman suddenly became chaotic. Seeing that he was about to get into chaos on the ship, Gu Mingda directly grabbed a young steward who was in a panic and didn't know what to do. Quick, the water pirates have turned against each other. Hurry up and organize the boatmen to pick up weapons. When the young steward heard this, the look of panic on his face continued. I'm just a handyman, how can I disturb them? Gu Mingda said directly, the chief manager is dead. We can't escape anyway. No matter what you say or scare us, we can only fight to the death. As long as we survive, you will definitely be able to be our boss when you return to the trading company. Big boss. Don't you want to be a big boss? When the little steward heard this, his eyes suddenly burst into light. Okay, I'll call the boatman to come over. If there is no big steward, then I will be the big steward. Gu Mingda and Sun Jiaxing went around telling people to organize the staff. Sun Jiaxing was in charge of the lower class cabin, while Gu Mingda was in charge of the upper class cabin. At this time, the people in the lower class cabin were easier to talk to. If they were promised a huge profit, they would be willing to fight for the life and death of everyone. On the contrary, the masters in the upper class cabin all wanted to keep the young and strong servants to protect themselves. No matter how much Gu Mingda talked, they were unwilling to provide any manpower. Even the ordinary young and strong men that Sun Jiaxing had organized with great difficulty, the masters in the upper class cabin wanted to get involved when they saw it. How much did he give you? I'm willing to pay double. The masters in the upper class cabin dragged their feet crazily in the face of a life and death situation. The dozens of people that Sun Jiaxing had organized with great effort were originally gathered for profit. Now that they heard that someone offered a higher price, they turned against them on the spot. A bunch of people ran away and surrounded the group of masters. They looked so dedicated that those who didn't know would think they were originally their servants. Gu Mingda and Sun Jiaxing were so angry when they saw this. The boat shook violently. Seeing that they could not persuade these people, Gu Mingda and Sun Jiaxing could only take the servants of the Sun family, armed with weapons, and stand in the front line with the boatmen. How about we give some money to the pirates and ask them to let us go, someone suggested. This was immediately retorted, can't the pirates kill all the people and search slowly? In this way, they don't have to worry about us hiding anything. They are all vicious people who kill without blinking an eye, and they will not let us go. The cunning master heard this and began to urge his servants, hurry up, Look for a small boat. If it is torn open later, we will quickly get on the boat and run away. First update. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shenshen. Chapter 186. In the room, Zhang Yuniang held Niu Niu and Gu Zhao in her arms. Gu Yan, Brother Shen, and Lu Ziru all held sticks they found somewhere in their hands to protect them. Mrs. Gu and Dad Gu are old and are explaining the funeral arrangements to their daughter-in-law. Put away my clothes. Your father's and I's money has been sewn inside. Mrs. Gu thrust the clothes she had just changed into her daughter-in-law's hands. Zhang Yuniang did not answer, but said, Mom, the water thieves really rushed in soon, we will run for our lives separately. If we can survive one by one, we can rendezvous if we keep the money. Mrs. Gu was not as optimistic as she was, but said, Your father and I have lived enough for our age. If possible, I hope you can escape with your children. If you are really going to fall into the bandits' den, we must also take care of our children and live well. Mother. Mrs. Gu said, the most important thing in life is that you don't care about chastity or not. My second son is not the one who cares about these things. The most important thing is that you should be a good person. In my heart, you will always be a good daughter-in-law. Zhang Yuniang burst into tears when she heard this. When Mrs. Li heard this while holding her child, she looked at Zhang Yuniang enviously. The Li family has a clean reputation for generations. If she ends up in a bandit's den, the Li family will never tolerate her being alive. The shaking of the ship's hull became more and more severe, and the shouts and fighting outside became more and more intense. From time to time, the sound of heavy objects falling into the water could be heard. The people in the room heard the sounds outside getting louder and louder. Don't be afraid, Grandpa will protect your dear baby. Father Gu stretched out his hand and touched the soft top of Niu Niu's hair. Niu Niu's face was pale and she grabbed her grandfather's hand. Niu Niu doesn't want anything to happen to you. But Father Gu shook his head gently. His eyes, which were always cloudy, were now as sharp as a sword about to be unsheathed. Brother Shen suddenly squatted down and whispered to Niu Niu, Niu Niu, if you survive, please go to Sifang Street in the capital and tell my mother there that your son is unfilial and he will no longer be able to fulfill his filial piety under her knees. After Brother Shen said this, he immediately straightened up. Even though his body was still shaking with fear, he still tried his best to block the children. A small number of water thieves sneaked in, and everyone could hear the footsteps getting closer and closer in the corridor. From time to time, there was the sound of the door being pushed in. Although it was not their turn to enter the room yet, everyone in the room was nervous. To the extreme. Father Gu and Mrs. Gu both had a look on their faces that looked forward to death. They stood behind the door with the women and maids of the Sun family, preparing to welcome the first wave of water thieves who wanted to rush in. There was finally a knock on the door. One sound after another, each one more violent than the last. Open the door. The fierce shouts and curses of the water thieves could be heard outside the door. A group of people were still holding onto the door. Break open the door, shouted the water thief outside the house. The sword was smashed against the door, and he saw that the door was crumbling and would soon be broken into. Father Gu squeezed the stick tightly. The door was now as brittle as a piece of paper, and it seemed that it would be smashed into pieces in the next second. There was an air of despair in the room. Everyone had to worry about the water thieves outside the door, as well as Sun Jiaxing and Gu Mingde who were fighting the water thieves on the board of the boat. After taking a look at everyone around her, Niu Niu lowered her head and whispered, I hope I can see everyone get out of trouble safely. As soon as Niu Niu finished speaking, everyone heard a high-pitched whistle sound coming from far away. The whistle sound was 3 short and 1 long. After the water thief outside the door heard the sound, his attack suddenly stopped. No, someone is coming. This whistle is not from our people. The water thieves heard something was wrong in the sound. The house in front of them was a tough nut to crack. After hacking for a long time, they couldn't get in. The water thieves didn't know who was coming outside. At this time, they were eager to make a profit first and rushed into other houses on the spot. Zhang Yuniang listened to the sound of rummaging through boxes and cabinets from other rooms, and slowly breathed a sigh of relief. She turned back and glanced at her daughter behind her. Don't be afraid, my dear, we will definitely reach the capital safely. Nayuniu nodded obediently. The whistle sounded closer and closer, and the water thief's footsteps became more and more messy, as if something was chasing them. Come on. The uniform sound of charging and killing suddenly resounded throughout the sky. Navy, the Navy is here. Niu Niu heard someone shouting. The sound of weapons clashing could be heard endlessly, and all kinds of wailing sounds didn't stop either. I don't know how long it took, but the shaking of the ship's hull stopped. Everyone in the room was hungry. Footsteps sounded again in the corridor outside. Father, Mother. Yun Niang, Nayuniu, Ayan, Zhao, Gu Mingda's voice reached everyone's ears. The door opened and Gu Mingda rushed in. He looked at all the family members carefully. We're fine, they didn't come in. Zhang Yuniang looked at Gu Mingda as she spoke. Gu Mingda breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this, and then faced Li's worried eyes on the side. He explained, I'm fine, and brother Sun is fine too. He just sprained his foot. Originally, a knife was aimed at brother Sunday. I sprained my feet and just escaped. Facing the water thieves, just spraining his feet was already considered a great blessing. Ms. Sir, have you encountered any danger? Zhang Yuniang asked worriedly. Gu Mingda smiled and said, I was lucky. The water thief's knife fell on my face. Suddenly there was a silver light in the diagonal stab. It turned out to be a young general in his teens who hit me with a gun and blocked it for me. This was a fatal blow. Everyone held their breath after listening to his wonderful words. They felt like they were in a tea house and listened to Mr. Shu telling stories. Sooner than later, the water thieves came with great force. We and the boatman brothers were beaten back by the water thieves. Many people even jumped into the water to survive. Seeing that there was no way to survive, the Navy suddenly appeared on the water. Fleet. After everyone heard this, they were filled with fear when they thought about the urgency of the situation. It's getting quieter outside. Brother Gu. Mr. Li stood up and saluted. Gu Mingda immediately understood what she wanted to do and said, Brother and sister, brother Sun is now with the wounded, waiting for the doctor to deal with the injury. I will take you to see him. Mrs. Li quickly entrusted longevity to Zhang Yuniang. Niu Niu ran over, grabbed the hem of Gu Mingda's clothes, and said, Dad, I also want to see Daddy Sunday. Now that the Navy was in control of the situation, Gu Mingda was not afraid of trouble and took Li and Niu Niu to the ship's board. Daddy Sun, Niu Niu saw Sun Jiaxing sitting on the board at a glance. Sun Jiaxing was relieved to see Mrs. Li. Daddy Sun, we are all fine. We are all so brave and blocked the bad guys from the door, Niu Niu said. Sun Jiaxing gently pinched Niu Niu's chubby little face and said, Niu Niu is also brave. She is not afraid of bad people. Don't pinch my. Niu Niu said vaguely. Before she finished speaking, Niu Niu's vision went dark and she fell headlong to the ground. Before she lost consciousness, she seemed to hear the exclamations of Gu Mingda and Sun Jiaxing in her ears. Second update. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shenshen. Chapter 187. Niu Niu felt like she was lying in a cloud. Her whole body was warm and no matter how much she rolled, she would not fall. There were birds chirping and flowers fragrant all around, and the sun shone through the leaves on her face. There was just one bad thing. Nayuniu reached out and touched her belly, which was growling. Nayuniu, Nayuniu, do you want to stay and play with me? Yudao asked softly. Countless voices shouted together, stay. Nayuniu, stay. When Nayuniu heard this, she didn't feel anything was wrong, but asked, is there anything to eat when you stay? Looking for food, countless voices shouted. Niu Niu struggled to sit up from the grass, and suddenly a stone-paved path appeared under her feet. Niu Niu stepped on it and kept walking forward. Mist suddenly rose from all around. Niu Niu looked at the scene and suddenly became frightened. Go forward, the voice suddenly became sinister. Nayuniu was almost scared to tears. Her feet seemed to be frozen in place, not daring to move forward at all. Go, 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 the voice was still urging. Niu Niu pursed her lips and did not dare to move forward. Nayuniu, Nayuniu, a soft voice fell in her ear. After a while, Niu Niu heard the sound of water. Go left, Nayuniu, come quickly, a soft voice urged. Niu Niu glanced to the left, and the soft grass turned into an abyss. Niu Niu was very scared, but she instinctively trusted that voice. Her heart skipped a beat and she stepped out to the left. The expected weightlessness did not happen, but a small pond appeared. The water surface of the small pond was crystal clear, with 10 lotus leaves of various sizes growing there, and a small red fish swimming under the lotus leaf. When the little fish saw Nayuniu, he jumped directly from the water into her hand. How did you get yourself into this? Xiao Yu asked softly. Niu Niu lowered her head and saw that her chubby little hands were now as dry as chicken claws. I'm sorry, Nayuniu felt guilty. Forget it, how can I bear to blame you? If you are hungry, drink some water and don't pick lotus leaves, Xiao said. Niu Niu originally wanted to pick off lotus leaves and scoop out water to drink, but after hearing this, she could only lie down by the pond and drink water. I don't know how long I drank, but the pond in front of Niu Niu became empty, and she was about to cry again. I'm sorry, I drank the pond dry, will you die? Xiao Yu said, it's okay, you can go back quickly. The pond in front of Niu Niu gradually disappeared. Wake up, wake up. Nayuniu opened her eyes and saw Zhang Yuniang's worried eyes. Mom. Niu Niu opened her mouth and was frightened by her own dark and hoarse voice. When Zhang Yuniang saw Niu Niu waking up, her tears immediately fell. But she didn't have time to be sad. Instead, she quickly stood up and shouted outside the curtain, Doctor, doctor, come and see my daughter. She's awake. A middle-aged doctor in his 40s strode in, then sat beside Nayuniu's bed and took the little girl's pulse. Little girl, do you know that you scared your family to death? You were in coma for 3 days, and your mother cried for 3 whole days. Her eyes were swollen from crying, the middle-aged doctor said. Niu Niu looked at Zhang Yuniang and saw her mother's red and swollen eyes. Her mouth curled up and tears started to fall. Oh, be good and don't lose the golden beans, the doctor coaxed. Niu Niu tried her best to hold back her tears. The middle-aged doctor took the pulse carefully for a long time, and then twirled his beard and said to Zhang Yuniang, when she was in a coma, her pulse was as if a candle was about to go out, and she was in danger for a while. Now that she wakes up and looks at it, she can't even tell that her pulse is strong. This kid was close to death. Zhang Yuniang asked, Doctor, is this all right? The doctor nodded. Zhang Yuniang hurriedly asked, Doctor, please see what medicine you want to prescribe for this child. I will boil the medicine. The doctor shook his head and said, there is no need to prescribe medicine for the time being, but she has just recovered from a serious illness, so there will be further twists and turns. She has been here every morning for the past few days. Zhang Yuniang breathed a long sigh of relief. Okay, I will listen to you. The curtain on the door was opened, and Gu Mingda walked in carrying a young man wearing a silver mask. "I heard that Nayuniu woke up," Gu Mingda said excitedly. Then, he gently placed the young man on his back on the bed beside him. "Nayuniu, are you feeling uncomfortable in any way? Is there anything you want to eat or play? Tell Dad quickly." Gu Mingda said one sentence after another, eager to send everything he could think of to Niu Niu. Niu Niu slowly shook her head, looked at her father and said, "Dad, have you and your mother not slept well during this period? There are a lot of red bloodshot eyes." Seeing his daughter's considerate and well-behaved appearance, Gu Mingda's heart softened. In order not to worry his daughter, he shook his head and said, "Dad didn't sleep well at night, but he ate too much spicy food in the past 2 days. My eyes are red." This kind of deception can only fool children. Niu Niu said thoughtfully, "It turns out that people who eat spicy food will have red eyes. Niu Niu should eat less spicy food in the future." The middle-aged doctor said from the side, "During this period, the diet is mainly light." Zhang Yuniang had gone out when Gu Mingda came in. When she came back, she was carrying 2 bowls of rice porridge and several plates of side dishes. She handed one of the meals to Gu Mingda. "Nayuniu, Dad will go feed brother first," Gu Mingda said, turning around and sitting next to the silver-faced boy on the bed opposite Nayuniu with food. Zhang Yuniang brought another meal to Nayuniu. Nayuniu asked in a low voice, "Is the little brother injured?" Zhang Yuniang explained softly, "This is the young general who saved your father before. You can call brother Xie. He was injured in his hands and feet before and is also recovering here with the doctor. He will go to Beijing with us later." Nayuniu nodded obediently and said, "Brother Xie saved my father and is Nayuniu's benefactor. Nayuniu and my parents will take care of him later." Zhang Yuniang was afraid that Nayuniu would ask her why brother Xie was wearing a mask. Fortunately, Nayuniu has always been well behaved and would not do such embarrassing things. Before Gu Mingda handed over the spoon, Xie Chuan took off the mask on his face, revealing the hideous and intertwined scars on his left face. He slightly turned his body. But even so, from Niu Niu's perspective, half of Xie Chuan's profile could be seen. Xie Chuan had already prepared for the little girl to cry loudly, but after waiting for a while, he did not hear the expected cry. Niu Niu's eyes were full of distress, and she asked, "Mom, is brother Xie's face also injured? Is he injured while saving daddy?" Her voice was not loud, but Xie Chuan was a martial artist with sharp ears and eyes. When he heard this, the coldness on his face almost disappeared. First update. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 188. "It has nothing to do with your father," Xie Chuan said. Gu Mingda and Zhang Yuniang suddenly heard Xie Chuan speak, and they were surprised. Gu Mingda couldn't help thinking that his daughter was the one who could make the cold-faced and taciturn General Xie speak. The couple helped take care of Xie Chuan for 3 days, and Xie Chuan didn't say a word. Even though Nayuniu heard that it had nothing to do with Gu Mingda, she still looked distressed and said, "Brother, does your scar hurt?" Xie Chuan turned his head and showed Nayuniu his whole face. The full view of his face, when he was not wearing a mask, scared many people, and it would definitely scare the little girl to tears. But Nayuniu still looked at his face without fear, with only pure concern in her big round eyes. Xie Chuan suddenly lost the battle, and said angrily, "Don't worry about it even if it hurts." As soon as he finished speaking, Xie Chuan couldn't help but regret it. Was he too fierce? This was still a child. He should be several years older than her. He shouldn't be so fierce to her. Would she cry? How to comfort her then? Nayuniu didn't cry at all, but said seriously, "If brother hurts, Nayuniu's candy will be given to you." Nayuniu has candy in her pocket. While talking, She didn't even care about eating, and went to look for her purse. Zhang Yuniang put down the bowl with good temper, helped her find the purse, and deliberately asked, "This is the candy that Na Yuniu has saved for many days. Do you really want to give it to your brothers yet?" Na Yuniu nodded vigorously. Zhang Yuniang got up and put the purse of candy on the small table beside Xie Chuan. Xie Chuan still had a cold face and said, "I don't want it. Only children want to eat candy. I am a general. Generals don't eat candy." Na Yuniu heard this and said, "Why can't a general eat candy? A general will also feel pain." Xie Chuan didn't know what to say for a while. On the other hand, the middle-aged doctor who was watching the excitement on the side couldn't help laughing. "You little brat, someone should treat you. You are only 12 years old, and you only know how to pretend to be an adult with a stern face every day." Hearing this, Gu Mingde and Zhang Yuniang were touched. "Little general, you are only 12 years old. I always thought you were at least 16 or 17 years old," Gu Mingde said. It's no wonder that Gu Mingde misunderstood. Xie Chuan is tall, taller than brother Shen, who is already 17 years old. Who would have thought that he is only 12? Xie Chuan's age was exposed by the doctor, and his cold face suddenly couldn't be kept up, and his face was full of embarrassment of a child pretending to be an adult. The middle-aged doctor said cheerfully, "This kid grows fast, even when drinking water. He also likes to keep a cold face. He is imitating General Liu." Xie Chuan was so angry that he didn't want to eat. He turned his head and ignored everyone. "Look, he is throwing a tantrum again and won't eat. Did General Liu also throw a tantrum and refuse to eat? Is that how you learned it?" the doctor said deliberately. Xie Chuan turned his head and glared at the doctor angrily, but he didn't throw a tantrum anymore and ate the spoonful of porridge that Gu Mingde fed to his mouth. Zhang Yuniang suppressed her uneasiness and asked softly, "What month is the little general's birthday?" Xie Chuan didn't answer. It was still the middle-aged doctor who knew him very well who helped to reply, "This kid's birthday is in spring. His mother had a difficult delivery that year, and it was I who saved them with a dose of medicine." Xie Chuan had been sabotaged by the doctor many times, and now he finally got the chance to expose the doctor. "It was obviously your master who saved the person. You were just a decoctionist back then, and you are flattering yourself." The doctor was not angry when he heard this, and asked proudly, "Just tell me if I made the decoction." Xie Chuan couldn't argue with him, and he puffed up his cheeks in anger, like an inflated pufferfish. But when Zhang Yuniang heard what the doctor said, her eyes suddenly darkened. Since the doctor personally delivered the baby, the child was not her second kid. Niu was sensitive to her mother's emotions and whispered, "Mom, what's wrong with you?" Zhang Yuniang turned around and saw her daughter's face full of concern. Her heart softened and she said, "Mom is fine. My dear, eat first. Only when you are full can you have the strength to grow up." Niu opened her mouth wide and ate the food in the spoon in one gulp. Then she looked at Zhang Yuniang with puffed cheeks, as if she was using practical actions to prove that she had eaten well. Zhang Yuniang's mouth curled up and gently tapped her daughter's nose. Xie Chuan, who was watching the interaction between the mother and daughter, couldn't help but be in a trance. Niu, I heard you woke up. That's great." A bunch of people came in with the curtains opened. Niu looked up and saw that all her family members had come, crowding the small ward that was temporarily separated so that she couldn't even turn around. "Forget it, go back after dinner. I'm almost suffocated by the crowd," the doctor said to Niu helplessly. After these words were spoken, several more people left, and the room finally became spacious. However, the couple from the Sun family who had left were still outside the door, holding Chang Xiao and looking in eagerly. "You are so lucky, little girl. Your family holds you in their hands and loves you. They come here to see you whenever they are free during this period," the doctor sighed. It is very common to love sons in this world, but this is the first time he has seen someone love his adopted daughter and goddaughter to this extent. Nayuniu cares most about her family. When she heard this, she straightened up and said confidently, "They say I am their good baby." Lu Xiru nodded vigorously and said, "Yes, Nayuniu is the best good baby." Zhang Yuniang glanced at her in a reproachful manner and said, "You stayed up all night last night and went back to sleep. Why are you here again? Go back and rest." The red bloodshot in Lu Xiru's eyes was similar to Zhang Yuniang's. She stared at Nayuniu and said, "It's not easy for the baby to wake up. How can I feel at ease if I don't take a look?" Lu Xiru's face was haggard and she couldn't hide it at all. Nayuniu felt distressed when she saw it. She immediately said, "Auntie Lu, I'm fine. The doctor said I don't need to take any medicine. Go back and rest." Lu Xiru was really tired. She asked the doctor again to confirm that the child was really fine. Then she walked back with 1 foot deep and 1 foot shallow. Zhang Yuniang was worried about her and asked others to send Lu Xiru back. Everyone else was easy to persuade, but Gu Zhao refused to leave, crying, "I have to look after my sister. I didn't see her for a while, and she got sick and was in a coma for 3 days." Gu Mingda heard this and asked, "I was the one who took care of her when she was in a coma 3 days ago. You stinky boy, you even blame me." Gu Zhao nodded vigorously and said, "Yes, no one can take care of Nayuniu, not even daddy. Only I can take care of her." Gu Mingda was amused by this filial son again. Second update. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shenshen. Chapter 189. After Nayuniu finished her meal, Zhang Yuniang packed up her things and asked the doctor to take her daughter's pulse again before leaving. After making sure that her daughter was fine, she took Nayuniu and Gu Zhao away with many thanks. Gu Mingda stayed and continued to take care of Xiexin Chuan. "You can go back. You must want to be with your child," Xiexin Chuan suddenly said. Gu Mingda had noticed something wrong with the child before. The child was strong-willed. When he was injured, his father did not stay to take care of him. Instead, he let strangers like them escort him back to Beijing to recuperate. Gu Mingda guessed that Xiexin Chuan probably wanted his family to accompany him. Gu Mingda did not show his inner sympathy, but said, "If I go back now, it will embarrass my wife." Xiexin Chuan looked puzzled. Gu Mingda explained, "The little girl did something wrong, her mother would probably scold her. I was next to her, and when I saw the child looking so pitiful, I probably couldn't help but want to smooth things over." Zhang Yuniang had been suppressing her emotions before, thinking that her daughter had just woken up, and was afraid that she couldn't stand the scolding. But now that the doctor said the child was fine, when they returned to their own room, Zhang Yuniang handed Gu Zhao to old lady Gu, and turned to Nayuniu with a sullen face. Nayuniu also knew why her mother was angry, and lowered her head. "It's all my fault, I'm sorry." Zhang Yuniang's tears fell again, and after wiping them hard, she said, "You almost scared me to death, did you know? 3 days ago, when facing the pirates, the situation turned so quickly, and Nayuniu fell into a coma for no reason. The daughter was still in a coma and fell into life and death several times." Zhang Yuniang and Gu Mingda could naturally be sure that their daughter had used her special ability. Even old lady Gu and old father Gu vaguely sensed something. "You are not a good kid at all." This is the first time Zhang Yuniang has scolded her daughter after adopting Niu Niu for so long. Niu Niu pouted and was about to cry. Zhang Yuniang felt very uncomfortable when she saw her daughter was about to cry. She was thinking whether she had said too harshly just now. Her daughter had just recovered from a serious illness. Could she bear such a harsh scolding? Should she wait a few more days? But if she waited a few more days, she was afraid that her daughter would not learn her lesson and would do it again next time. Zhang Yuniang's mind was like a tangled mess. She couldn't find the end of the thread after struggling for a long time. But Niu Niu was one step ahead of her. The little girl threw herself into her mother's arms and cried, "Mom, isn't it good now? Everyone is fine, Niu Niu is fine too, we are all fine." Hearing this, Zhang Yuniang lifted her daughter's sleeves to reveal the location of the birthmark on her wrist. "I remember your birthmark when I first adopted you. It was light red. Later, when I gave you a bath, I saw that the color got darker and darker. How about now?" Niu lowered her head and saw the fish birthmark on her right arm. "Now the color is so light that it is almost the same as the skin color. There is only a little red at the edge, which makes people barely see that it was once a fish-shaped birthmark. Its color will slowly turn red, mother, I will be fine," Niu said guiltily. The little girl herself did not know what her ability was. Now she said this just to comfort her mother. Zhang Yuniang sighed and said, "My dear, you may have a great origin, and you may do something extraordinary in the future. Your father and I are just ordinary people. We can't help you a lot, and we don't want to hold you back." Zhang Yuniang sometimes thought that Niu might be the reincarnation of a god. With such an origin, coming to the world is like going through a catastrophe, and she will definitely experience many twists and turns in the future. What she and Gu Mingda feared most was that Niu's special power might be used less and less each time. Now it's all used up. What if her daughter doesn't have enough power when she needs it in the future? Niu raised her little face, and her clear eyes were full of Zhang Yuniang's reflection. "But for Niu, you have never been a hindrance. You are everything to me." Zhang Yuniang felt sad. She always told herself that raising a child requires rewards, and she can't be a person who doesn't ask for rewards. But when her daughter really uses her special power to repay her, she is only full of worries about her daughter. "My dear, everyone has their own destiny. If you are really killed by pirates, it is also our destiny. Don't force it. Just live well." Zhang Yuniang looked calm. Niu shook her head vigorously, "That's not your life. If you are gone, Niu can't live well." Zhang Yuniang didn't know what to say for a while, but she couldn't suck her daughter's blood calmly. Niu stuttered, "You all say I have special abilities, maybe this ability is to protect Mom, protect everyone, our family is fine, Niu is very happy." Zhang Yuniang was stunned. "Niu, you are already very good and well behaved. Protecting your family should be the job of adults. You are a child, and taking care of yourself is already very impressive," Zhang Yuniang said. Niu tilted her head and thought for a while, then asked, "Mom, if you were me, would you not save Dad?" Zhang Yuniang naturally couldn't just watch him die. Niu continued, "Niu doesn't want anything else. Niu just wants everyone to be fine. Niu's wish is very small." Zhang Yuniang had no way to deal with her daughter. She sighed, thinking that she was the one who forced her daughter to give up her family. Zhang Yuniang said helplessly, "My dear, promise me that you will never make a wish casually in the future." Just after saying this, Zhang Yuniang was stunned. It seemed that she had said this to her daughter more than once. Niu also smiled sweetly and nodded like she had done countless times in the past. "Okay, I'll listen to you." Zhang Yuniang glanced at her daughter with a grudge. Niu turned and asked, "Mom, where are Brother Xie's family members? Should we let him go to Beijing with us?" Zhang Yuniang sighed and explained, "Your Brother Xie's father, General Xie, is the deputy commander of the Navy camp. The court issued an official document some time ago, requiring the Navy to eliminate the pirates along the way to Beijing. General Xie is busy with official business, so he entrusted this matter to us. That day, they were unlucky. Every time the pirate village changed its owner, one or two major events would always be done to let the passing ships know that the filial piety had to be paid by someone else. The major event of Wuazai happened to be held on their ship. Although the head shopkeeper was gone, most of the boatmen were retained. Most of the guests on the ship were safe. They were still in a hurry to go to Beijing, so the boat continued to set off for Beijing after cleaning. While the mother and daughter were talking, there was a sudden commotion outside. "We agreed to double the silver, are you guys trying to cheat?" "What are you trying to cheat about?" "We didn't cheat, but you didn't do anything either. The people who really protected us were the Navy. What does it have to do with you?" First update. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 190. Niu Niu pricked up her ears and listened, her head stretched out, her big eyes purring, looking like a kitten jumping up and down. "Okay, it's none of your business. You need to recover from your illness. Just lie down in the room and have a good rest. Don't run around," Zhang Yuniang said. But Niu Niu scratched her head, thinking about the excitement outside. "Mom, I want to go out and have a look." Niu Niu followed Zhang Yuniang pitifully and acted coquettishly. Zhang Yuniang couldn't stand her sweet and soft little daughter treating her like this. "That's all, you can watch the excitement if you want," Zhang Yuniang said. Niu Niu suddenly beamed with joy. Zhang Yuniang changed the topic and said, "It's just that I'm here to watch for you. You must be good in the house. If you don't, I won't tell you what's going on outside." Niu Niu's face suddenly fell. Zhang Yuniang looked at her daughter like this and found it funny, and said, "You are only 6 years old, why do you like to watch the fun so much?" Niu Niu sighed and said, "I don't know." Zhang Yuniang soon knew the reason. She saw two familiar faces in the bustling center. Mrs. Gu and Gu Zhao, two faces, one big and one small, all watched the excitement intently. Mom, Zhang Yuniang squeezed past with great effort. Mrs. Gu squeezed out a vacant seat and said, "You can see clearly from here." Zhang Yuniang had no choice but to squeeze into the empty seat. She could only be grateful that there were many people in the family, and Lu Xiru and Gu Yan could keep an eye on Niu Niu and Dad Gu to prevent the old and the young from running around. "What happened?" Zhang Yuniang asked her mother-in-law. Mrs. Gu rushed over immediately, so she probably understood the cause and effect. She pointed at the surrounded gentlemen. "These wealthy men are dressed like men and dogs, but in fact they don't do anything." That day, Jiaxing finally spent money to hire a man and a boatman to deal with the water thieves. "It's better for these men hiding behind," they said, "pay double the money for these people to protect them." By doing this, they almost killed Jiaxing and Mingda. 3 boatmen were killed that day, and several others were injured and lying there all the time. If it weren't for the young general's accurate marksmanship, Mingda would probably be lying there with the doctor now. These gentlemen have robbed people, and now they are reluctant to part with the money. They don't want to give out double the money. They are really doing the same thing in front of their faces and behind their backs. Why don't the water thieves give them a knife? When Mrs. Gu talked about these things, her teeth itched with hatred. Hearing this, Zhang Yuniang's eyes towards these people became unkind. But these rich gentlemen are still arguing, "You have no enemies, you are just standing next to us, why do you want 60 taels of silver from us?" With so many people asking for 60 taels of silver each, wouldn't it cost them their lives? They even regretted that if they had known that the Navy would come so quickly, they shouldn't have invited them. Then the person paying now is Sun Jiaxing. "Repent of what you promised, brothers, throw them into the water," a short man among the young men shouted loudly. When the other ordinary young men heard this, they were instantly inspired and struggled to push forward. "Where's the boatman? Where's the steward? Isn't there anyone on board to take care of the trouble?" the gentleman shouted. But the stewards pretended not to know. When the boatmen thought of their dead companions, they all wanted to rush up and beat them together. The leading gentleman has been lifted up by the young men and has been moving towards the water. He is about to be thrown down. Here, come on, why don't I give you money? The gentlemen finally compromised. They only regret that they are still on the boat and have no response every day. If they get off the boat, who will be angry with these reckless men? The young men lifted the person up for a moment. Give me the money now, hurry up, the short man urged to settle the payment on the spot. There are still some people among the gentlemen who have reached this point and are thinking of playing tricks. I really don't have that much money on me. Think about it, who takes a boat with a box of silver? Don't worry, I will give it to you when you get off the boat. The young men were stunned for a moment. Many of them were still naive and actually believed this. But the short man seemed to be the brains of these young men and shouted directly, "No. If there is no cash, there are also banknotes. If there is no banknote, we will use valuables to offset the price. Whoever can't get it will be thrown away." The other young men only needed to obey blindly when they heard the voice, and immediately lifted the old man up. The faces of the gentlemen suddenly turned green. They only hated that their servants were useless and were no match for these young men. Okay, give me the banknote, give me the banknote. There are also people who are unwilling to give up and want to play tricks during the money-giving process. But this time I really met my opponent. There will be a discount when exchanging silver notes. If you give me 100 taels of silver notes, it will only count as 80 taels of silver. The old man was dumbfounded and cursed, "Why are you more evil than the bank? The bank won't take 20% of it. Who knows what material this jade pendant you gave us is made of? Anyway, we don't understand what is ice type or not. This thing is only worth a tael of silver in our eyes." The man who took out the jade pendant was confused when he heard this and said, "How can it be worth only 1 tael of silver? I still bought it for 5 taels of silver." When the short man heard this, he immediately cursed, "You originally wanted to bargain with us for 50 taels of something you bought for 50 taels, but I knew none of you were honest. Even 1 tael of silver is too much for me. 10 cents is too much." But now all the young men listen to the short man, and this short man is difficult to deal with. No matter how full of clever ideas the old men have, they will only be defeated when they encounter such a smart team. After a long time of fussing, how could the masters tolerate the items they bought at a high price being mortgaged by the short man at a low price? One by one, they didn't know where to get a lot of gold and silver. After the short man and his brothers got the money, he sneered at the masters, "Look, they don't have no money, they just don't want to give it to us." As soon as the short man said this, a group of people immediately glared at the masters. Relying on the money from the masters, the short man now has a lot of people in the lower cabin, and his prestige is very high. Almost at his command, these people will chase him. The young and strong people go out to make a living to earn money. Now they have 60 taels of silver in their accounts on the boat, and many people have the idea of returning home on the spot. The short man did not stop them, but took the initiative to say, "Brothers, I happen to have a lot of connections in Beijing. If you still want to go to Beijing, you might as well follow me to find a job. With me here, I will never let you go hungry." For those who were determined to return home, the short man did not stop them, but advised them to get off the boat at the next dock to avoid being retaliated by the masters on the boat. Perhaps because of his excellent performance in asking for wages, after his combination of punches, more than half of the young and strong were willing to follow him. The excitement ended and the crowd gradually dispersed. Just as Zhang Yuniang was about to return, she suddenly saw Gu Mingda and Sun Jiaxing in the crowd. Not only did they watch the excitement themselves, they also carried Xie Chuan on their backs. The excitement of watching the excitement on their faces had not yet subsided, and they saw their family members not far away, and they were immediately embarrassed. Zhang Yuniang glanced at Gu Mingde, and then looked at the old lady Gu, who was excited to share gossip with her son, thinking that it was no wonder that Niuniao loved to watch the excitement so much. It turned out that the reason was these two people. This Wang He is indeed a character. Either he wants to cheat the brothers out of the 60 taels of silver, or he can really lead this group of people to make a name for himself in the capital, Gu Mingde said. Wang He is not someone else, but the leader of the young men, a short young man. Sun Jiaxing looked strange. He was the one who organized the young men in the lower cabin that day. He always had a good memory, and now he finally expressed his doubts. When I organized people to meet the enemy that day, I didn't seem to have seen this person. Second update.